Sorry, I had some internet interference. Sorry with that. Sorry with that. So what I was talking about right here is I had internet problem in here, but now it's solved. It is solved. Um, what I was talking about, it is the CPM. That the CPM is very important to manager. Every manager should be knowing it. So if we know project management, one of the areas is to become serious with the projects. Becoming serious with the projects, it is you can attain your goal. When you look at CPM, of course, they both use network diagram. So CPM and Pert, critical path methods, and Pert analysis. That is project evaluation review techniques. They both uses network diagrams. The critical path methods is deterministic. You can determine, you can compute, and so on. So the Pert, it uses a lot of probability. So you have to plan for worst scenario, good scenario. So you take into consideration all those kind of things, the favorable, the likelihood of events to happen, the uncertainties, and so on. So that's the PET, the project evaluation review techniques. For CPM, you need to take into control one estimate. You just estimate single, that one activity, and so on. But for PET, when you are computing it, you have three estimates of which we will see. So PET is infrequently used in most of the projects, but people use because it contains some elements of probability on it. So the PET analysis, we say this, it was developed by the US Navy, as I said the other time, that the United States of America, the Navy developed the PET analysis. It takes into consideration the issue of uncertainties. It is unlike the CPM, and the CPM, it did not take into account the issue of uncertainty, but here the issue of probability, it is where it emerges when measuring or when running a project. You have to determine the likelihood of getting good performance or not getting good performance. And that's why countries like United States, they can even manage to go to the moon because they have to apply the project evaluation review techniques, the PETs. So once they do that, you will see they are becoming very much reliable. You may attain your project to go to the moon, or you may disappear, you may not come back. So that's why you see most of the developing nations, they are not capable of going to the moon. The only countries that managed to develop a project to go to the moon, that is among the developing nation, that is India. So India has managed to go to the moon. In most of our countries, especially in Africa, you could rarely see us going to the moon because we don't take into consideration that this is the project and we need to know the issue of probability. So you may attain your goal, you may not attain. There is a likelihood of bad events, there is a favorable events you need to plan for, and so on. What are the climates that will make the good scenario for the projects to be successful? So when you take into consideration the PET analysis, the project evaluation review techniques, it answers all those questions. It answers all those questions. So The US Navy developed this model, and this model, they have been very successful. They're using it in the military. They're using it in the military, and from military-wise, they have been using into different organizations. Now it is being used in construction, in construction projects. Any type of projects that you find, it can switch the environments you can use, depending on the likelihood of happening, the likelihood of the events to happen. That is the Pert. And that's why now it has been part of the academics because of the US Navy, who discovered the issue of the Pert analysis. You have to take into consideration the uncertainty around the project, that you may succeed or you may not succeed. Now, Pert is employed for planning and controlling projects involving uncertainty. This is events-oriented techniques. Its basis is a networks of events which activities are derived from connecting events. Pert studies the implication of uncertainties. That is the good thing. And therefore, when you look at Pert, you will realize that you have to compute 3 times are considered when computing the Pert. When computing the Pert, you have 3 time estimates. One is optimistic time. One is optimistic time. Favorable time. It is the shortest possible time in which an activity can be completed under ideal conditions. So in here, you have to take assumption that all things are favorable. All things, they're in good condition. So you take that idea, under good condition, how long will it be finished? So you estimate the activity under good condition, under bad condition, under favorable, under likely, and so on. So that is assumptions. So when you are planning your projects, you can decide to plan by taking the favorable time. So you consider the favorable time. This is the shortest possible time in which an activity can be completed under ideal condition. It is assumed that everything is favorable in completing the activity in the shortest possible time. So here you have everything in order, everything in order. You have pessimistic time, the TP. This is unfavorable time. So it is maximum time that will take to complete an activity under worst condition. So you have to plan. Let's say it comes to worst condition. What will be the scenario? How long can we finish under worst scenario? Now, as a manager, you need to have a probability in your mind when you are running a project when it comes to scenario. This is scenario. What will happen? What will happen? It's just like someone who is planning to do the wedding. When you are planning your wedding, you will first think, good scenario. Wow, when it happened to good scenario, this is what will happen. Let's say when you have unfavorable condition, what will happen? So you need to plan for, because sometimes your projects, wedding projects, may be distracted, and you may bring the bridegroom. The bridegroom may disappear on the day of your wedding. How are you going to do? So you should be planning for those things. Might happen, you never know, might happen. So we say you will plan for favorable time, you plan for unfavorable time. Unfavorable time in here it is TP, and we say another time, it is the most likely time. This is the probability. This is the normal time. So normal time, it is you are completing the activity under normal time. It is the time in which an activity can be completed under normal condition. This is under normal condition, that you are completing the activity under normal condition. What will be the scenario for that one? So the expected time, the pet arrive at a time where the expected time, it is given by TE, taking into account the three estimates. So you have the TO, the favorable one, and you have the TM, and you also have plus TP, the whole of this divided by 6. That will give you the expected time. So the PET gives the answer for expected time. The TE. So the TE is the TO plus 40M plus TP. The whole of it divide by 6. Or I can express this way. I may express this way. That TE is equal to A plus 4M plus B, where TE, I mean expected time, A is about optimistic time, and M is about most likely time estimates, B is pessimistic time estimates. So all these are the same formula, You can put the way you want, so long as you have some descriptions to explain about that. So what you will see, it is something like that. For example, let us see on how we can compute that one. And first of all, I don't know whether everybody grabbed the formula. Can everybody grab this formula? Can everybody grab that formula? Please write down the formula. Have you finished writing down the formula? Yes? Okay. So if you have written down the formula, let us now go into this one. Have you finished copying down the formula?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Right. Now, let's go to the practical example right here. Let's go to the practical example. Let's go to the practical example. It should be this one. What do we see from there? This is, consider the following activities for dam construction projects. Maybe this is just about construction projects, because some of you will be working on the construction projects. So I have simplified for you. Those are the column, write down that one, write down it. Write down, the first column is on the activities. And the second column is optimistic time, TO, and this the third column is a pessimistic time, TP, and the other one is the most likely time. So compute the expected time. Compute the expected time. TE. Compute the expected time. TE. Use that formula, the one that I have shown you, to compute the expected time, and that will be the value for Pert, because now you have taken into consideration your time factor. You have taken into consideration the so-called the probability, optimistic time that you are likely to do under favorable condition. And what about in a worst scenario? And what about the under normal condition? How long will it do? So activity A under optimistic time, the activity can be finished under 8 days. But under pessimistic and favorable, it can be finished under 10 days. And under normal condition, 12 days. So you can now compute the expected time. Have you finished that one? Have you finished? Okay, I give you 5 minutes to finish that one. Okay, have you finished?
Yes.
Have you finished?
Yes.
Good. Now, by looking at that, what is the expected time for activity A?
11.
7. Is everybody getting 7?
11.
11.
Yes.
11.
Tumaini, you are getting 11?
What?
Yes, 11.
11. Okay.
11.
Do we agree is 11?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And what about for activity B?
9.5.
9.5. Good. What about for activity C?
19.
19. Very good. What about for activity D?
9.
What about for activity E?
8.
8.5.
Everybody getting 8?
9. 9.
Sonia,
9.
what are you getting? Eh?
It's 8.5.
Okay. Sonia, what are you getting?
11.
For activity D? Sonia? Steve, for activity D, how much you have?
Activity D is 9.
But Sonia, she's getting 11. Which answer is correct? Labora?
For activity D, it's 9.
Ibrahim?
Naam, doctor.
Which one is the right answer?
Activity D, answer is 9.
So do we agree is 9?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Sonia, please correct the way you are computing. What about for activity E?
It's 8.5.
8.5. Okay,
Yes.
8.
is 8, is it?
8.
Okay. What about activity F?
8.5.
Okay. Msongole, what are you getting?
8.5.
8.5. Okay. 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 Now, this means that is the time you may consider the expected time when scheduling. When you schedule, you consider now the issue of probability. You cannot plan this one unless you have to go down in your office and examine the resources available. You will need to check all the conditions, including the political climate, because some activities might not be implemented if we do not assess the condition. So especially if you are managing huge projects, when you're managing huge projects, you need to be sensitive in each activity that you're planning. You have to plan based on those facts. Check the resources available in your office, how much has been allocated for, and so on, depending on the environment of the project or the environment that you are working with. So that is very important. That is very important concept. So I want you, on Monday, I have given you some homework. I have given you some homework question. You will go through the Moodle and open up your Moodle. You will see there are about 4 or 5 questions. But on top of that, write down the following question. Do you have a pen? Please write down. Write down the following question. What is the standard deviation? What is the standard deviation? Ibrahim, have you written that one down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, what is the standard deviation? How standard deviation can it be used to predict the project? Give example. Give example. So this means this is your homework. This is your homework. On top of those other 5 questions I've given you, this is another question I have given you as a homework. You will be required to do as a homework. So you may do or you may not do. So your other questions, I said, you can go through the Moodle. You will see some other questions. It is about a bar chart. It is about a program process chart. It's about factors limiting the bar chart and the Henry Gantt chart and so on. So you'll find all those for your review and making your own notes based on this discussion. So after you, on Monday when we meet, you will represent those questions. You will represent those 5 questions here. You will present 5 questions here. So I'll pick randomly the individual to present, including the standard deviations and so on. Now, after being said that, let me come back again to this one. So as I said, the formula that you can use, this one I've given you as an assignment. I want you to do. This is your home assignment. On Monday, we will check and I will come back to this one after you have already computed by yourself. And now let me say something. What are the factors? What are the factors affecting work scheduling? Factors that affect work scheduling, you should be considering. There are so many factors. There's so many factors. And most of the factors in Africa are very dynamic. So you as a manager, for any project that you are doing, you should examine. Number 1 is the time availability. Time availability. The time availability is also sensitive. Time is crucial limiting factor in any projects. More time implies less investments. Time and cost are correlated factors. So you should know when you are running projects, the pressure that you will have all the time is the time factor itself. If you take more time, it will lead into cost overrun. So cost overrun, it's going to be loss for your organization. And if it is a loss to your organization, then you are not a good manager. You're not a good manager in terms of running the project. So always you should be sensitive to projects, time availability. You should not waste any time in the projects. As I said, avoid cost overrun. And this is what is happening to most of government in Africa. Most of the projects are not taking into consideration the time factors. they are being motivated or they are being run under individual perception. So if a project is run under individual perception, under individual willingness, without taking into account the time factor to accomplish the projects, then the project will suffer the cost overrun. Cost overrun is something that is not desirable to so many projects. So you need to control. Get a hold of your time. Time is very scarce resources in the projects, but people don't care sometimes. So some aspects of time consideration: constraints on start and completion of activities. Project must meet time-limited schedule. The schedule must account for holiday, bad weather days, non-working period. So you don't have excuse of saying because there was a flood, because it was raining, because it was what. You have to do, once you set a plan, you need to set a plan in such a way you exclude the public holiday. You also exclude the Sunday and Monday if you are, and so on, depending on the way you are looking, which day you can exclude for people to work in the projects is yourself to plan in that one. Which season you have to include for yourself to run those activities. So this is you. Nobody else will have to tell you when you have to run this way. So even if there's bad weather, you need to plan for bad weather, because we have some tools that can be used to predict the annual rainfall. The annual bad weather can be predicted unless if it is something that is out of control. Like right now, you know by December what will be happening. You actually know the rain season, when it starts. So you have to plan properly under those environments. So all these will lead into time constraint or time overrun. You may find your project you wanted to accomplish, but you did not take into account bad weather and so on. So please take into account about that one. Schedule must make use of reserve time available in the floats. So you should also be knowing what is the idle time in the project. What is the idle time in the project? Manpower. The right manpower needed for the completion of the project is very important. If you don't have suitable labor to run a project, is risky to you. You will have to compromise the quality. And when you compromise quality, that is also a problem. So a good manager is the one who will look at the manpower, suitable manpower to run the project. So that's why some of the projects, why do you see the presence of Chinese into construction projects, into hotel and lodge construction in most African government? Why? It is because they are skilled enough to perform the activities. So sometimes it is a challenge. It is a challenge. People have to take them on board, that these people are serious. They can perform activity and that activity becomes the best. So all those kind of things, you need to know you are constrained with the manpower. Constrained with manpower. Some projects, yes, you have to take your people for training so that you empower them and equip them with competent skills to perform some activities. So you can take them for short course and so on to perform similar activities based on the quality that you want. So these are the things. So this is also the factor that affects the quality, affect the schedule when we are planning. It affects the schedule. Manpower, it affects the schedule. Material, sometimes material are not coming in time. So No project ever starts without material. You should be knowing. Schedule aids in forecasting material and their timely supply determine the economics and progress of work. So you need also to consider the stock of material. How are you going to stock all those kind of things? It's very important. Machine availability. Do you have enough machine? Do you have enough machine or you don't have enough machine? If you don't have enough machine, then you'll find yourself, you can delay some activities. Any profitability of the projects. What is the expectations in terms of profitability you are taking into consideration? That also can affect the schedule of your activity. Schedule hierarchy. What are the schedule hierarchy that you need to have in your project? In your project, you must have the following key hierarchy. Number one is the project summary schedule. So you will have the overall project summary schedule of which you need to put it in your office. And then number two, you need to have a project master schedule, and that is for the master. And also you need to have the contract master schedules. Also, you need to have quarterly work schedule and monthly, weekly work program and so on. These are the things that you need to have as a manager. You need to get hold in your office when the auditor comes. They will ask all those kind of things. So the project summary, it shows the outline of time plan for executing the projects. It contains the schedule of sub-projects and other tasks used by top management to highlight the plans. So that is very important. For the master schedule, it shows the execution of work package and other important activities. It is the project management plan for commencing, mentoring, and controlling of the work. That is for the master. For the contract master schedule, it depicts the plan of execution of activities involved in execution of contracted work. It controls the contracted work and also determine the time effects of work deviation. So you can have the time for that one. These are the things that you will be having in your office when you are running. Are we together, folks? What are the performance parameters to be controlled in the project? The key performance parameters that a project manager needs to control is the time progress control. So the time progress control, you need to control that one. And also resource productivity control. You need to control your resource. You need to mobilize the resource in such a way you should not be someone who is complaining. You know, you as a manager, you should be someone who's looking for solution. You have targets to be attained. So you look for solution. So you go to projects, you find some projects manager are also complaining, just like ordinary staff, that you are not a good project manager. You are not a good project manager. So a good manager do not complain. You need to plan for the resources, and also you need to plan for productivity. You need to plan to mobilize the resources, even if they are not there, but you need to plan ahead. 2 years to come, you run into cash flow problems. You need to see that one. 3 years to come, you shall be in deficit. You have a role to play for that one. So you need to control your budget. You need to control your costs and so on. So this is what I wanted to share with you regarding the PERT analysis and so on. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Good. So we are running in a supersonic speed. Now we are going into another area where we talk about project costing. We talk about project costing. In this context, welcome to this session. This is the second session shall be able to examine basic consideration of project cost estimation, examine year zero and its significance to project, determine project revenue and benefits, analyze project costs and benefits, examine the role of break-even point in that project. And also, we are going to discuss briefly about each phase of an estimate may require different estimation or estimating inputs, methods, and techniques, as well as tools. These have been discussed in the previous session, and this will depend on the project cycle. The project planner is focusing. So whatever you are planning, you should be looking at the project cycle. Nature and type of the project may also influence project cost estimation. For example, when you are talking about construction projects, the way they will estimate their costs is not the same as talking as similar to community projects. So community project might be different. Health center project might be different from community project. School project. Ibrahim, do you hear?
Yes, I hear.
Do you hear?
Yes, doctor.
All right. Each phase of an estimate may require different estimation or estimating inputs, methods, techniques, as well as tools. These have been discussed in the previous session, and this will depend on the project cycle. Project planner is focused. Whatever you are planning, you should be looking at the project cycle. Nature and type of the project also influence project cost estimation. For example, when you are talking about construction project, the way they will estimate
Doctor, I cannot hear you.
not the same as talking as similar to community projects.
Doctor, we can't hear you.
Doctor, I cannot hear you.
Doctor,
Naona kaondoka, hayupo hapo.
nakuachia darasa Ibrahim. Mbona kama amejirekodi vile?
Ndogo sana.
Kama amerekodi sijui.
Ndio amerekodi lakini sauti ni ndogo sana.
Ni sawa. Si arampigie.
Haya.
Shule hii.
Si changamoto kweli. Ameenda kunywa kahawa atakuwa.
Umetuachia nini huku? Wewe Kasole. Wewe mwalimu wako vipi?
Hii ndio inaitwa project bwana. Hii ndio project nini? Ngoja aje mwambie hata tuelewe tunachoongea huko.
Wewe Chacha unaweka zogo tu Chacha hapo eh?
Sasa tulifanyaje?
Mwite ora.
Mimi nisikia nikisema hapa basi. Kwa hiyo tunakuja nimesogeza nimedumbukia pone kwenye sikio lakini bado
Kenda kuchukua alkasusi si unajua? Dakika 5 katoa.
Akija anaendelea alipoishia. Kiongo. Slide sio ngapi?
mimi simuoni mbona?
Ukitizama humuoni afu cha kushangaza.
Mimi simuoni.
Amerekodi ameiacha hiyo.
Wewe. Leo ndo leo.
Leo hii inaitwa kubwa lao leo hii.
Namkome.
Doctor, we can't hear.
You can't hear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you, from which area you did not hear? Ibrahim?
From the start of this section.
From the start. But Ibrahim
Yes.
said he understand and he can hear.
I hear at that time.
Okay. Now, let me talk briefly about it.
Thank you.
In this context of projects, we are talking about a project cost estimation. The project cost estimation, it is the beginning for us to start making consideration of the project. What are the costs as a manager you need to look at the project? You need, in this session, it's about examine the year zero and its significance to projects. Determine project revenue or benefits. Analyze project cost and benefits. Examine the role of break-even points in a project. And also we need to prepare a budget. So what type of projects you have in mind, each phase of an estimate may require different estimation inputs and methods, techniques and tools. There are different tools that are being applied when it comes to projects. And as I said, it will depend on the project cycle, the planner that you are focusing. The nature and the type of projects may influence the project cost estimation. Like You're talking of the projects related to construction projects. It's not the same as other projects that are really on the community-based projects, or maybe setting up a health center, or maybe setting up school projects, or education program projects, or road construction projects, or IT-related projects, or manufacturing or industrial projects, and so on. So all the estimations might not be the same when you're estimating. Road constructions, how do you estimate? Do you estimate per kilometers or per meter, per cubic meters? And how do you estimate? How do you arrive at costs? So this is the beginning for you to start thinking, brainstorming. The key part of the projects and the cost estimation, of course, is not to become an accountant. In here, we are not intending to become an accountant, because the work of an accountant will be to prepare cost based on the cost estimation. But for us, as a manager, you need to plan these costs based on the project's perspective. And based on that, it will differ from project to projects, from project to projects. So that is a very important point you should know. We also say the tasks of cost estimated by its very nature require the application of prudent judgment from the initiation to the completion. So there must be a very clear assumptions regarding the cost. All costs will be based on the forecast. Therefore, important to make realistic assumptions. You must go to the field to establish the base. Don't sit on the table when you are estimating cost. We are not sitting on the table and start computing cost. No, because this is not accounting. This is about estimation. You are predicting the future course of action to which there's no single formula, but it requires your prudence to look at those costs. And that's why you need to examine very carefully. So sometimes you can go and based on the market price, how much is going to be the labor cost, how much was going to be the cost of other materials, the cost of the machines, and so on. You may go to the market and the market will tell you the exact price for the related commodity that you're planning. So project cost estimates approximate project probable cost. So project manager must look at the project cost from the identification of the project itself, preparation stage, appraisal stage, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So you will look at all. If it is a new project, you must look at it all. So what are the basic considerations? Cost estimate should be sufficient detail and constructed to facilitate project financing and enable effective implementation. Because this is the baseline for you to consider those costs. So you need to have a detailed cost, you see, and it must be planned based on, or maybe based on the local currency that you have. When determining how to structure and present project cost estimates, it is necessary to consider the structure and capability of the organization. The accounting system may likely guide you, depending on whether you are planning for government, or you are planning for private, or you are planning for non-profit making. That category must be there. So the underlying project cost estimate should differentiate between the foreign exchange and the local currency. So which one are you focusing? You have to plan for contingency. You have to examine it for taxes. You have to examine it for freight charges. You have to examine it for customs. You have to examine the local costs. You have to examine the labor and so on. All those kind of costs. The project duration. How long will it take? Is it going to take a month? Is it going to take 1 year? Is it going to take 2 years? Is it going to take 3 years? So your role here is brainstorming. Your brainstorming must be giving you the facts. Must be giving you the facts, the facts, the facts. So, project cost estimates comprise project-based costs and prepared on the basis of detailed estimates of inputs by expenditure category and so on. And also the contingency, you'll have to take into consideration all those contingency. So, and so on when you are planning. And also what will be the developed cost, of course, this is the question you can, for you, I cannot give you by this time because I have already given you another assignment. I have said develop a project cost estimate showing the item, unit, quantity, rate, total cost, and this should be the period of 1 year. This is 12 months. 12 months. Now, you will do it by yourself. What are the other considerations when you are planning for your cost? Is the project scope. You will check for the project scope. What is your scope? And make sure your scope is covered by all the costs. Field visits, make field visits to examine the costs, and so that you can have the confidence on it. And also you need to plan for worst scenario and also the better scenario case of costs. Check for market condition, and you must be very much precise when you're planning for those costs. Now, as I said, the basic foundation is for us to estimate costs based on the nature of the project itself. So in here, what we have, if you are estimating the labor costs, you need to identify each unit, how much it costs. So in here, for example, you have something like this in here. You have the cost category. This is labor cost. Duration might be 1 month. The project code and name, you put it right there. Number, this is the serial number. Then you have the item. It might be the labor. It might be the mason. What type of the skills that you want. Maybe we want labor cost, skills, maybe mason, how many days it will take, and the cost per man days, and how much total cost will it be. So you will have to identify all these type of costs in each package of the projects. But the most important thing is any assumptions that you are putting, an assumption that you are writing down, you must make analysis of your assumptions. Cost of labor, are you paying per hour? How many for maybe for 5 days? How much does this cost per day? If it takes 5 days, how much is that going to be? You see, and any assumptions you are making, you must be explaining. This is what we require in the project plan documents to be included. So when you are preparing your project plan documents, you need to explain all those tables so that it is meaningful to show how you have derived your cost. So we say, make sure you support this table with the notes and narrate all the assumptions you are making. So you can have labor costs, You can have other related costs, maybe equipment, maybe training costs, maybe accommodation, maybe and so on, depending on the base that you have. But remember, right here, we are trying to plan the project, not to account for. So you must draw a table to each cost category identified in the projects. And therefore, we expect various tables to be supported with analysis. And costs must be accurate and feasible all the time, depending on the nature of the projects that you are measuring the cost. So you can measure, some costs can be based per ton, some costs can be based for cubic meters, some costs can be based on the kilometers, others can be based on the radius, square meters, and so on. You see, so spend some time to develop all cost category with underlying assumptions. What is the most important when you are preparing your project plan documents is the assumption you are making towards those costs that you are estimating. It's not about plugging in the number, but we require the narrative, the notes to support your number. That is very important. So you first compute each component based on the project line items or the cost line items. If you have those cost line items, maybe administrative expenses, you know what are the cost line item and administrative expenses. You will have the cost for the director, you will have the cost for the manager, you will have the cost for an accountant, you will have the cost for the finance manager, you will have the cost for the security guard, you will have the cost maybe for social security, you will have the cost for pay as you earn. You get the total, and then you will have the cost for maybe equipment, tools and equipment. So this is the category, and so on. This is what you shall be doing. So once you finish writing down all those categories, now you will get, you are being supported with analysis. Now you will have the estimated total project cost, of which at the end of the day, you will have to indicate the cost starting from year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on, depending on the life or maybe the time horizon of the project. So at year 0, most of projects must have year 0. Year 0 is very significant in planning the project, because why? During year 0, that is the time when production, actual production has not yet started. Output has not yet started. Benefits has not yet started coming in. This is, you're planning for some costs that you think are very strategic to appear in year 0. Now, what are the costs you'll have to encounter in year 0? You must have a logic in mind. Not all the costs will be appearing in year 0. This is the time when the project has not yet generated benefits. So all the costs that you think are important to be included at year 0, you put them there. And sometimes this is the time when we use as a tool for grace period. When you borrow money from banks, then you can be given a grace period. A grace period can be 1 month or 6 months, and so on, depending on the banks or financial institution agreements. So at that time, you will have to indicate that this is the time when, before we start generating or making returns to the financial institution, and that is the grace period. So for our case, this is before we have started, the project has not yet started generating the revenue or returns. That is very strategic. So you exclude the other costs that you think can be obtained in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, until you get the total. So if you have the total, that will be the cost item. So this is the aggregate. But again, you will need to support with analysis. So any assumptions you are making from year 0 to year 1 or year 1 to year 2, there might be some assumptions you are making. Because the figure will not be the same. The figure will not be the same. From year 1 is different from year 2. Year 2 is different from year 3. So any assumptions you're making, it might be about contingency. It might be about changes in inflation, because right now we are talking our inflation rate is 3.2. But when it comes to next year, it will not be the same 3.2. It might be 3.5. So you go through the central bank. The central bank, they have 10 years plan. You will assess that inflation, and then all your cost can be adjusted based on that estimated inflation rates from the central bank. And these are the assumptions that you'll be required to explain by yourself in your projects. So your assumptions must be very much realistic until you get the total for the variable that you are estimating over there. Are we together, Ibrahim?
Yes, doctor, we are together.
All right. So all the cost category will be added to the annual cost and summarized in the table above. Then notes of assumptions you are making from year 1 to year 2 is necessary to narrate at this stage. Strong arguments and narration must be developed at year 0. I have already said about that. What are the methodology that you can use to predict the cost? For bigger projects, a huge projects, yes, you can use different techniques. This one, I will not go deeper with you because some of you will be running. I will not go deeper with you, but I will just give you highlights. You can use the qualitative approach to predict the future. You can use the quantitative approach to predict the future. So the qualitative forecasting methods is based on the judgment. This is about guessing. This is about guessing. You are trying to guess the future. Next year, 10 years to come from today, 10 years to come from today, what will be the cost? So at one time, you will need to use your personal experience. You use the best judgment of yourself. So it is a lot about guess. It is a guesswork because you are using a qualitative approach. So the qualitative approach of forecasting is highly susceptible for political influence, especially information about what government plan to do and information about the revenue and so on. So you'll have to predict based on the politicians and so on. You have to include your personal feelings. So you can use your experience, that is DEFI, okay? You can use your personal experience. What is your experience when it comes to costing? How much is the cost of electricity? You can use the past information to predict the future, and you can predict it accordingly. But now you can predict by using a quantitative approach. There's so many tools for quantitative approach. You can use the function. You can use the function to run the predictive one. If you have the time series variable, you can function it in Excel, then it will predict you in 50 years to come how much. So long as you have the historical figure, you can predict the future until 2050. So you can predict what will be the future cost for running these projects in 50 years to come. For example, the standard gauge. The standard gauge is the project that will stay here for a long time. It may be about 40 years, because remember, the railway that we have been using from Kigoma to Dar es Salaam, That railway was constructed in 1909, something like that, or maybe 1922. It's a long time ago. So how many years has passed? So many years has passed. But now we are coming up with a standard gauge. So how long will it stay, the standard gauge? It might be stay for 50 years. So when you are planning a project like that, you cannot use your personal judgment. No, you cannot work. So you will have to sit down and project by using computer facilities, and you can use the best model. The best model, you can use the demand functions, you can use the supply function, you can use regression, you can use any type of model that you think can give you predictive way. You can use causality and so on. You know, you can measure the relationship in terms of the long run relations about the variables by itself and so on. There are so many mathematical tools that you can use for seasonality, measuring the trends and so on. So this one is up to you, because if I will get deeper with you, some of you will disappear in my class. So I don't want you to disappear, to leave you behind. I want you to concentrate this one. So you can use, for simple projects, you can use your qualitative approach. You just predict next year what will be the cost for this project. What will be the cost for this project for next year? And you can use the best judgment. What will be the cost 5 years? Yes, you can manage. 5 years you can manage. But for bigger project, as I said, the standard gauge, Stigler's Gorge, the power plants in the Pwani area, that one, it will take number of years, 10 years, 20 years. You need to measure costs in terms of the span we are talking about right here. So you cannot use the qualitative approach. It will mislead you, because you have to plan. You have to plan 2050. How can you plan 2050 by guessing? It cannot work. So the best approach is you to use the quantitative. Quantitative, you can plan even 100 years or 200 years ahead of the project. So these are the things that you find will be the most important tools. This will be similar to when you are using your revenue, when you are predicting your revenue. So for revenue is simply another name for the money that the project gets from selling their goods or services. So you see, this revenue, how do we get revenue? We get revenue out of selling the output. We get revenue out of selling maybe the products. We get revenue out of selling services or providing services. Services can be in a form of consultation, or it can be in a form of any, depending on the way you will see yourself. So how do you work the issue of sales revenue? It's price times quantity. Yes, it is price times quantity. But some other projects, it is just about receiving grants. It is about aid. It is about loan. All those will be part of revenue flowing into the projects. Now, how are you going to estimate the flow of funds? You need to project. You need to consult. If you are borrowing a loan from financial institutions, you need to predict when is the likelihood of you getting the revenue. And if you are getting money from donor, it is maybe you have a project to set up to assist maybe the disabled, or maybe the street children, or maybe the orphan, maybe the elderly, and so on. You need to plan ahead 5 years to come. How much do you require? Donor will not give you money at once. They will have to give you in installments. Now you need to predict the installments maybe every after 4 months. It is after you have given them quarterly report or progress report. You provide a progress report. That is the time when you get the flow of revenue. So all this will depend with the type of projects you are running. So the estimate of revenue, can it be weekly? Can it be daily? Can it be monthly? Can it be annually? And so on, depending on the nature of the project. You estimate by yourself. So all revenue must be forecasted with the clear notes and assumptions. Revenue can be your benefits or income. So sometimes you may find yourself saying, this is my income, but it is revenue. This is your benefits. This is revenue. So donation, grants, aid, donor funding, etc., flowing into the project are part of the revenue. And I have already said about that one. So project revenue seeks to forecast the flow of revenue into the projects during the given period of time. So how do we estimate? A project can use previous experience to estimate current revenue. So you can use the historical records that you have in your books to estimate the future flow of your revenue. That is very easy, okay? You may look at the competition to help estimate revenue. You may look at the competition from other companies, the similar business in the same industry. What is happening? So estimate how many items are expected to be sold. If you are selling, you have to estimate per week, per day, how much is that one? Plan for the worst scenario. So you need to plan for the better scenario, make assumptions, many assumptions as required, and also to be very much realistic. So identify revenue resources and items for the project. Establish a revenue for each item, get the total for the projects. And also you will have to, after you have identified all those, you have analyzed on top there, just like the way we did in the cost, then you will have the revenue table there, of which must be included again in the plan. You'll have year zero. This year zero, always you may not have revenue in year zero because that's the time when the production has not yet started, and therefore you cannot generate revenue at year zero. It's very difficult. This is the assumption we are making, and therefore you will have a table like that, and this table you will use it to plan for the future by yourself. So all cost category will be added to the annual cost and summarize in the table above. Then the notes of assumption you are making from year one to year zero, from year zero to year two, you have to narrate and you have to come up with strong arguments. Important point to remember, after you have identified all the costs and expenditure and all your revenue or sales, it is easier to develop the following projections. So if you know your revenue, if you know your cost in a project, of course, you will have, when you are writing your project plan documents, a project plan documents cannot be submitted without you showing cost estimation, 5 years or 1 year or 1 day cost or and so on, depending on the life plan of the projects. So you have cost estimation, revenue estimation, and also cost and benefit estimation. All these, they must be incorporated in our plan. No project plan that is likely to be successful for funding by sponsoring agency if they are not incapable of including justification of those costs and revenue to be generated. So you need to know, once cost has been prepared and revenue has been prepared, has been identified, you can easily predict the future cash flow. You can easily predict the working capital requirements. You can easily predict income statement. You can easily predict the balance sheet or statement of financial position and so on. So these are the things that you consider. So when it comes to planning a project, it is necessary for you, especially when you are writing the cash flow projections, because here cash flow projections is necessary to be included in your projects. the forecasted income statement. All these will be forecasted, and so on. When we say forecasted, these are important. And then you need to add your budget. Budget is also very important for this inclusion. But again, no any project plan document or the project charter that is likely to be viable if they do not include what we have said in here. All these elements must be included, and therefore, to some extent, you have to follow the international standard when preparing these, especially when it comes to category. All projects will have assets. You need to predict liabilities. You need to predict fixed asset. You need to predict current asset. You need to predict current liability. So this is all about predicting. But you can nicely predict if you have good foundation from the cost. If you have good foundation from the revenue, now those are the baseline. You will know how much your project is likely to encounter in the process while running, what will be the projects that are likely to be generated. So once revenue and cost has been planned, you can easily measure the benefits. Okay, so you can prepare another table. So we say here, forecasting project revenue and expenses during the startup stage is more than art. This is the art. To predict revenue, to predict the future, it is an art to which a project manager needed to develop, to know in year 5, that is the end of my project, what are the costs? How much will it remain? How much will be the size of the cash flow? Are we going to have the surplus being generated? What is the lesson that we are going to get out of that? So many planners complain that building forecast with any degree of accuracy takes a lot of time. Of course, it is time consuming. When you are forecasting the future, it is time consuming. The future is uncertain, nobody knows. But again, there is no single formula that will predict, that we can use to predict something. There are different approaches. All those approaches will be guided by your assumptions that you're making when you're predicting your revenue and your costs. Oh, this assignment you can do by yourself at your home. You can do it by yourself in your own time. So that is briefly about cost and revenue and so on. But now, what is the importance of break-even point in a project? I think everybody knows what is a project. What is a break-even point? What is a break-even point? What is a break-even point? Before I continue, Ibrahim, do you have any question?
No question.
Are you getting along? Or I'm just speaking by myself? Sonia, are you there? Aaron, Moses, are you sleeping? Moses? Some individuals are not there. Madin?
Yes, doctor.
Are we together?
Yes, we are together.
Kasore?
Yes, doctor.
Are we there?
Yes, doctor.
I thought I'm just by myself.
No, we are here.
You are there, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So now let me continue. So, for any projects, we consider, especially for those projects that have elements of profitability. For any project that it has elements of profitability, it is important for those projects to consider the break-even point. You need to know the zone where you will start making profit. You need to know the zone where if you go below it, you will start getting losses. So break-even analysis is performed to determine the value of variable of a project that makes two elements equal. Okay, so revenue equal to cost. So it is very useful for profit making. As I said, it's very useful for profit making projects. So this is the term that you have been using. So manager, you need always to run within those areas that at least you should be conscious to that output that will start giving you losses. So you need to identify the cut point. What is the cut point? And that is the most sensitive part to manager to start looking at it. Now, it is applicable to projects that are related with the aim of profit making. As I said, profit making project must be aware of the loss zone output and the profit zone output. The break-even point can be used to calculate in advance the level of sales or revenue needed to break even. See how changes in output affect profit. See how changes in price affect the break-even point. See how changes in cost affect the break-even point. So we have, that is the basic formula to which we are using when you are looking at the break-even point. You will look at the fixed cost is equal to contribution, that is selling price per unit, minus variable cost per unit. That will give you how many units that will lead you into break-even points. And that one you can read by yourself again. It is there. And we have another example. Of course, I will give you these notes. You will have these notes. These notes, that Joseph Moifwani is a small producer of banana in Rungwe. His fixed costs are 60,000, the variable cost 40 per unit. He sells the banana to local authorities across Mbeya region for 100 each. Required compute break-even point for Joseph Moifwan, a producer of banana. So the simplest way to calculate the break-even point is to use contribution. Contribution is the amount of money left over after the variable cost per unit is taken away from the selling point. So you can see that one, and it can give you another example. You can do it by yourself. I don't need to calculate with you, but again, you can use the total revenue, total cost approach. So when you use that approach again, it will give you the so-called break-even point. And this is the example I have indicated for you. You will need to do it by yourself. You will have to follow. I will send you through Moodle tonight. I will send you through Moodle. If not tonight, it will be tomorrow in the morning. So likely you'll get all these notes by today. I will upload your notes. So you will see when you have that example, I have already computed for fixed cost. How much is that one? And the total variable cost, the total cost, and the total revenue, and the profit or loss. You can imagine how much is that one. So you can plot that one in a graph. So at that point where total cost, you see that one. At that point when you find the total cost equal to total revenue, that is the output that you need to focus. So you know the loss making zone and the profit making zone. So a serious manager will be focusing at the profit making zone. So why business undertake its break-even points? Because the contribution from every unit sold above the break-even points add more profit. The break-even points provide a focus for the business. It works out whether the forecast sales will be enough to produce a profit, and so on. Those are among the points that you may consider you are self-useful. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes.
Okay. I have been talking a lot. I've been talking a lot. I have been talking a lot. I've been talking a lot about that one. So a budget.
Yeah, sure.
A budget, this is, if you have done properly your cost estimates, you can plan a budget for 50 years to come. But you need to use formula. You can plan a budget 20 years to come in a project. You can plan a budget 5 years to come. You can plan a budget 1 month. You can plan a budget for a day. You can have a budget for some few minutes, half an hour budget. So a budget by itself is very similar to what we have said in a cost. What is being added here, you should know this is just a financial plan. It is prepared and approved prior to the budget period, and it may show income and your expenditure. It may be for the business, for the department, for the production part, and so on. It may be for the projects, but most projects, most budget are not realistic because people, they don't have good foundation in terms of estimating. And that's why some of you, after you finish right here, your MSc in finance, you'll find yourself being employed as a grant officer. If you're a grant officer, the key area that you'll be looking is on the financial projections, and the budget is one of them. You check the sources of cost, how those people are there, and which assumptions are they coming up with assumptions. So your role is in a project is to predict, but when you are predicting, you go back, you link your activities, your work breakdown structures, your scope, your project scope, as we said. That is the area where you need to dwell much of the time. So you will develop your budget, and your budget must be having the budget line items. When you have the budget line items, of which we can say, I think you know what I'm talking when I say about project line items. Everybody knows, is it? Ibrahim.
Naam, Doctor.
Yes, do you know what is budget line items?
Not yet. I'm thinking too much now.
Okay. Kasore.
Yes, doctor.
Budget line item, what is that?
Budget line item.
Yes.
I think that the line item which do not have the activities. Just a block figure which do not have the activities.
Okay. Steve. Steve.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes. The budget line item, what is that?
It's just a kind of budgeting whereby a full amount or a block amount is there to represent a certain activities which is not shown in that direct to that amount.
Okay. Okay. Simai. Chacha. Maria. Bina Mutones.
Yes,
Bina
sir.
Mutones. Yes.
Doctor, I'm here.
You're there. Yes,
Yes,
what is
I'm following.
budget line item?
What I understand, I think
Presentation of
when you construct a budget, There are some
department wise.
heading of the
Oh,
maybe income or expense. Maybe when I say the utility expense, under
Yes.
utility expense, I say electricity, water, and etc.
Yes.
So the utility expense is an example of a budget line item.
Yes. Okay, let's do one thing. We can develop together in the class. Let's develop by ourselves right here to know what is the budget by itself. Let me do one thing right here. Let me go to Excel. Let me download one document in here. What should I do this way? This way. And if I have that way. Let me create one document right here in Excel. This is our budget. MSc Finance. Okay. Suppose we have something like that. Now, if we are to develop a budget in a project, what we have to do, of course, the first column will be about write what? This will be our serial number, is it? Are we together? The second column will be about what? Msongole. The second column will be about what?
Item, I think.
Item or particular? Item.
Yes.
Item. Let's write particulars. Particulars.
Particular.
And another item will be what? You can write quantity. Quantity. Another item can be rate. And this can be the what?
Amount.
Amount, very good. Amount, the total, very good. Now, this is our simple headings that we have. Let's use this as a example that we can share some basics when it comes to our budget. So in here, what we shall have is something like that. So here we have number one. We need to have this one. Budget must show your income, must show your what? Must show your revenue, must show your cost, okay? So let's call this is A. Let me call this is A. This is A. Now, if it is A, then we call this is our revenue. Revenue. If it is our revenue, we will know how much is that one we require. What sort of revenue we can have, what type of project that we have. Maybe let's assume this project is donor funded project. So if it is donor funded, then you shall have to get grants. You can receive grants, you can get something like, if you have some grants, you can have aid, and you can have aid from where? From DFID, from what? From JICA and so on, from Netherlands Embassy and so on. Government fund, government fund, see, and so on. Then we can determine the quantity, how much do we get from there, and so on. So this is in the right here, we can get the total revenue that we have. That is the total we have. Okay. Now, in terms of expenditure, we are just reminding ourselves, this is our expenditure. Now, expenditure, it is where you'll find there is a lot of category items. One of the category item can be human resource. What you will be required to plan for? Okay, what will be required to plan for under human resource? Yeah, you will need to plan so many things. The items that will come right here under human resource. This is A, this is B, that is B. Okay, and under human resource, you can have what? We call this one. Okay. And the human resource, we can have, maybe we can have director salaries, director, or maybe, let me not summarize, directors' salaries, and we can have managers' salaries, and we can have accountant, we can have what else? Security guard, secretary, etc., etc., etc. But we shall have maybe PPF. Nowadays we don't have. Let's go to Social Security Fund, and what else do we have? Is pay as you earn, payee, and so on. So this gives you your subtotal. Now I'm trying to think, maybe this is the project. This is subtotal A. This is subtotal A. That is subtotal A. So this project, maybe this project is about education support. Okay, this is about education support. So I can have something like that. Is that okay, Ibrahim? Are you getting? Okay. So I am okay. I go to another category. Okay, we go to another category. This is number 2 category. Another category. I can say another category can be administrative, or not administrative. Can it be maybe equipments? Okay, equipments and the tools. So you need to know all issues related to equipments must get in there. So one of the equipments, you can have the machines. Another equipment, you can have a computer for the project. Another one, you can have what? Labora, you can have what? Photocopier. Another one, we can have what? Guys,
transportation.
What?
Transportation.
Vehicle.
Vehicle. Yes.
Vehicle.
Yes,
Very
vehicle.
good. Vehicle. Vehicle. Another one. Another one. Another one. Yes. Another one. What is that? Let me say we have a subtotal right here. Subtotal. Okay. So this is subtotal. That was subtotal A. This is subtotal B. Okay. We go to another one. Another one is about what? Another category is about what? Transport. Transport and accommodation. Okay, so with this one, what we need to do is we need to plan for fuel in the project. You need to plan for per diem. You need to plan for etc. Okay, etc. You will need to plan for that. So you will have a subtotal. We go to another one. Are we getting together?
Yes, doctor.
Do you follow? Because this is our blackboard, so I'm trying to use the blackboard to make sure that everybody can cope up. So for any projects, at least you must be knowing that it is important for you to analyze all those issues we are talking about in here. So, so that some of you can go and run the project. So if you know the cost line item for each, if this one is not, etc. We can go to the third one. This is, let's go to the fourth one. The fourth one, can it be general expenses? General expenses. Okay, so for general expenses can be, but you have to brainstorm your budget based on the cost estimates that you have developed in the previous chapter. So this will be similar. It will be almost similar. You just copy, but you put in such a way now it looks like a budget. Now, the most important thing is, let me say, you have seen this is number one. Number one is the budget category, and the budget category for human resource. This is the line item, human resource. The line, another line item is equipment. Another line item is the transport and accommodation. Another line item is the general expenses. So these are the things that we expect you shall be doing at the end of the day. But after developing the quantity, the rate, the amount, and so on, so this will be year zero. This will be for year one, okay? That will be year one. Year zero, you can plan year zero, you can plan year two, you can plan year three, year four, until you get the total, okay? Total, depending on the lifetime of the project. It gives you the total, and when you do that, that becomes your budget for which you can use to support. This is your master budget, 5 years budget, depending on the nature of the project, from start to finish. So the budget will provide a picture that what are the sources of income, and of course you might have already done from the estimation there plus the assumptions, but again here it is where you say the title will be the forecasted budget from 2020 to 2025. this is what you will say. This is the forecasted budget. So if it is a forecasted budget, it is, you cannot write right here 0, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we will write this 0, it is 2020, and this is 2021, and the other one is 2022, another one is 2023. So these are the year, but under hypothetical, when we are learning in a class, we start with the 0, but in the real world, in a project, you cannot write 0 because people will not understand you. The 0 will be the time when you think it is exact year where you will not do any kind of production. So these are the things that you require to understand about the budget. So no write-up will be passed from the eyes and the ears of the grant officer without having attachment of the budget, the revenue, the cost, and so on. And the forecasted one, if a project is about 5 years, make sure you are consistent in your planning. And also the assumption that you are making from year 1 to year 2, what is happening here? From year 2 to year 3, what is happening? You cannot have constant figure throughout. That is, it means you are short-sighted when you are developing your write-up. A write-up must be strong enough to convince people that you can give people with money. People can give you money because the write-up by itself is more convincing, is more attractive. It has some justification. Are we together? Are we together, folks?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I've been talking a lot. I have been talking a lot. So the budget line item, when I talk, I think right now you are aware with it. You know what is the budget line item by the way, when I talk about that. And also, anyway, do you have any comments? Should we continue? Okay. So that is one of the attachment you will be having in your plan. Now, because you are an accountant and you have good background in finance, most of you are an accountant, you have good background in finance. Let me share you something, another document that you will be required to attach. What are the documents that you'll be required? This is our cash flow. Cash flow. Cash flow, we need to forecast the cash flow in our projects. We need to know, we need to predict the inflow and the outflow of our income. This is the future in the project. No, again I repeat, no project write-up is likely to pass without forecasting the future cash flow. The future cash flow is the lifeblood of your project. So you must predict it. So you will need to know the cash from operating activities. Okay, cash from operation. Okay, cash from investing and cash from financing. This is up to you. Some other project might not have it, may not have those kind of category. They may find themselves flowing into operating activities, cash from operating activities. So you'll have to plan the inflow and the outflow from operating activities. If it is 5 years, you develop the cash flow for 5 years. If it is 10 years, you develop the cash flow for 10 years. If it is 20 years, you develop the cash flow in 20 years. So that is the point we are talking right here. So our aim is not to become an accountant. Our aim is to become project manager on how we can use the finance information or the accounting information to predict about our project that we are about to start. So project plan documents must be accompanied with the cash flow forecasting. And that is what I wanted to say, the concept of cash flow statement, present information about cash flow associated with the company main operation and ability, showing the ability to generate cash in a project. So in a project, we prepare the so-called a pro forma or forecasted income statement. That is what we prepare. Pro forma, as a matter of form, is applied to process presenting financial projections for a specific period of time in a standardized format. A project planning uses pro forma statement for decision making in planning and controlling, and therefore cash flow. And that's why we have to use that one. Cash flow is very important. So cash flow problems are the main reason to why many projects fails, because you did not plan, you did not forecast the flow of cash in your project. So you may end up not having enough salaries to pay staff, and that's going to be the problem. So cash flow of money in and out of the project is important. It's important. It's important for you to know. It's important. So managing cash flow is vital, and it is about survival of the project. So forecasting cash flow for any type of projects, for example, power plants project, school projects, health center project, as I said another time, cash flow forecast is important to both implementing agency and financing agency of the project. So all those the project sponsor will never give you funding if you don't have a clear cash flow for the pro forma cash flow or forecasted cash flow. A clear cash flow forecast may gain confidence that the project is sound enough to generate cash, and therefore manager need to understand how to forecast the cash. The time horizon, this is very similar to what I've said. You might be planning for short run, you might be planning for medium time, you might be planning for long run, but this is indicative depending on the lifetime of the projects. This is what we say. So the key areas for your cash flow, it will be about looking at the operating activities, looking at investing activities, and also the financing activities. So most of you have the finance background, and therefore with this one, I will not stay much, but what I will suggest is when you write now a proposal, the assignment, make sure you include all this information that we are talking about when planning for our cash flow. You need to include all those information. In case you have operating cash flow, and in case you have from investing activities, and in case you have a flow from financing activities, and so on and so on. So you will have the structure for our pro forma cash flow. We will plan based on those category of the cash flow from year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So at the end of the day, we can have the total. This total, when we have the total and the annual, it will help us to write a very good executive summary. Executive summary that has no numbers, that executive summary is not good in terms of convincing whether the sponsor will give you funding or will not give you funding. So the most important thing is all cash flow are based on assumption, and therefore you must provide guidance. You must provide analysis of the assumptions and so on. You can do that activity for yourself, but because I have given you the assignment, you will have to do it for yourself, a project for your choice, and develop the so-called forecasted cash flow depending on the lifetime of your projects. Are we together, folks? Is that okay? Ashura? 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 You're not there. And G, who is G?
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Good. Ashura not there. Okay. Some individuals are turning on as if they are present, but sometimes they are not there. They are driving. I know they are driving. They are sometimes drive from Posta. Some of them, they are now stuck with the traffic jam in Dar es Salaam, especially in Ubungo. So you shouldn't be live in our class. You are hiding yourself. You are hiding yourself. You shouldn't be live. But why do you hide yourself? That is not good to hide yourself. Yes, I can see Dad is enjoying Isma, you are enjoying with your family. That's good. Family can also understand what we are learning in the class. So, guys, I think I've been talking a lot. And it has taken me about 2.5 hours just talking. I think we should stop here for today, is it?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it is okay.
It is okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
doctor.
All right, so what I will say is I've given you some questions. Make sure you go and do those questions for the homework and you go through your Moodle. You'll also go through your Moodle, please. You'll find five questions indicated there. So you can start reading those questions. When we come on Monday, we go ahead. And on Monday, we just talk briefly regarding the so-called income statement and the balance sheet. Because in your project write-ups, you must include it. Whether you like or you don't like, it is a non-profit making or it is a profit making project, you must have elements of your assets. You must predict what assets you need. You will need a vehicle, you will need a motorcycle, you will need photocopier machines, you will need so on. You must plan for it. May I say thank you very much. I wish you the best for today. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.